right, today we are going to talk about what really makes a Les Paul a Les Paul. What are the things out there that you should be aware of when shopping for a Les Paul other than just something on the headstock, a name on the headstock? Now, what makes a Les Paul a Les Paul? Well, I have two Les Pauls here actually. Here I have a guitar that I'm in the process of refurbishing. This is a 1993 Orville Gibson guitar made in Japan. These are very rare these days. This guitar was basically Gibson's answer to producing Les Pauls outside of the United States. And in Japan, if you take a look at the headstock, you will see that that is your typical Gibson USA headstock, as well as everything else on this guitar, with the exception there is no binding on the fret nibs. But it's a Les Paul that was produced by the Gibson company in Japan. They called it the Orville, or there's also the Orville by Gibson. Those are a little bit higher in terms of quality. Those have burstbuckers in them. All of those are shot with lacquer. This model, the LP80S, actually happens to also be shot with lacquer, but it does not have Gibson burstbuckers in it. These are Japanese microphones in it. They sound great, but is it a Les Paul? Well, what is a Les Paul? I have another example of a Les Paul here to use as I'm still doing work on this, so we'll get into this later. We'll talk more about this Orville Les Paul a little bit later. But for today, let's use my Stoner Les Paul as an example. So what is a Les Paul? So this is a two-piece solid maple cap. Also over here on this Japanese, also made Orville, we have a maple top, but it is not two-piece. It's actual, as I said, in this case, I'm looking at it, it's a three-piece maple top. You can see on the seams there. So those are the things that you'll generally find the difference between Gibson USA models and import models. Now, these are talking about the differences between a Les Paul that is imported or made in Japan or Korea or China versus a USA made. Now, however, of course, there are plenty of import guitars out there that are made to those same specifications. If you really have to have that mahogany one-piece back, the two-piece maple cap, then there are plenty of exports, for example, out there like Tokai, that are producing guitars like this for a significant discount. However, most imports you will find will have a two-piece mahogany back and a two-piece to multiple piece maple top on them, cap. So there's that. Again, they both share the feature of having the cutaway. In the case of the fretboard, on both of these cases, you're talking about a rosewood fretboard. So a rosewood fretboard with a one-piece mahogany neck. This is a one-piece mahogany neck over here. This is actually a scarf joint two-piece neck. The scarf is right here. So a little bit of design differences, of course, this one being closer to a Gibson USA in that regard, but still those are the main components that you would find on a Les Paul. Again, I'll go through them. That's a mahogany back, a maple cap, a one-piece mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard on it, two humbuckers, pickups on it, so let's talk about that. There are some designs out there, of course, that feature a single pickup in either the bridge or even I've seen in the neck position, but standard design will call for two humbuckers. So there you have it. Those are the basic components of what a Les Paul is, but I haven't yet talked about what makes a good Les Paul. Well, a lot of people out there are of the camp that it is the woods that will make the difference in the tone of a guitar. Now, the guitars that are generally imported from Epiphone from China are using Philippine sourced wood. So it'd be Philippine mahoganies and Philippine maples, which of course is not the same. It's not as good of a quality wood as you would find with the Gibson USA. However, on Chinese imports and Korean imports, with that being the case, that's pretty much across the line until you get to the Japanese imports. And generally with the Japanese-made guitars like these two, the wood is actually, even in some cases, a better quality than you would find in USA standards. The Japanese are very, very particular about sourcing their wood. So you'll get fine quality mahogany, a finer quality maple, and rosewood, of course. In the case of Epiphones, they stopped using rosewood for the fretboards. They use a different source, different types of materials at this point. Laurel, Indian laurel being the main one. But it is really the Japanese desire to try to recreate things with using the best materials as possible. So, what makes a good Les Paul? Well, a good Les Paul is made up of course, all of these things that, make a Les Paul. But what makes a good Les Paul really comes down to the care and the consideration of the construction. I have to say that I've had a lot of Les Pauls by Gibson and by other folks, Epiphone, now Stoner, and these Orvilles that I've experienced in my life, and I really don't care about what it says on the headstock. You can always license out that Gibson or find a guitar that has licensed out that Gibson headstock if that headstock shape, as opposed to the Epiphone shape, really bothers you. In the case of both of these, obviously I don't have to worry about that. I have the Gibson design. I don't care about what it says on that headstock. I care about the fit and finish, the weight. Some guys want them light, some people want them heavy. I find that a good 8.2 pound Les Paul is pretty much what you want to shoot for, between 8.2 and 8.5. I think a good Les Paul is made up of the best materials as possible. So if you can spend a little bit more, try to find something that has good woods to it. That's not shooting down Epiphones at all. I just said that their woods are a little bit substandard, but I'm saying that if you do want to go that extra mile, without spending Gibson money, you can find awesome Japanese-made guitars that are certainly produced with that fit and finish care that I was talking about, as well as higher quality materials. It really comes down to you as a player in terms of the neck size. Les Pauls really have variable necks on them. The C shape, the D shape, the 50s neck, the 60s slim is what I'm talking about. That's going to come down to you as a preference of the player, but again, it comes down to what you feel comfortable with in your hands. For me, the classic 50s neck is a must-have on a Les Paul. I don't think it's a Les Paul unless it has a pretty meaty neck, not a 58 baseball neck, but a 59 neck. I think that's what I'm looking for in a good Les Paul. So pickups are very important as well. You can take some cheap pickups and put them in an excellent guitar and go through a good amp and it'll be all right. Why don't you just find some great pickups, put it in a great guitar, and play it through a great amp, and then you're all the way there. So pickups are very important. That's going to be subjective as well, but you want to make sure that a Les Paul has a bite and a growl to it. So that bridge pickup is really where it's happening. It does clean up very well. Epiphones have a habit of not cleaning up very well, like a Gibson USA. In the neck position, you'll have to toy around with neck heights and things like that. But again, all these things are subjective. What makes a good Les Paul a good Les Paul? A good Les Paul is one that you look over at and you want to play, you want to reach for. You see it sitting in the corner, you're like, hey, I haven't played for an hour. Well, maybe not that much, but I haven't played it in a day or so, and I want to reach over there and pick it up and play it. That's a good Les Paul. You know that you've found your winner. You like the color, you like the shape, you like the neck, you like everything about it, the setup, the pickup sounds. You found yourself a winner. So searching for a good Les Paul is going to come down to you as an individual, but now you know what to look for if you didn't before. All the parts being a sum of the whole, you know what to look for to achieve the end of that quest of finding the perfect Les Paul for you. These two, I have to be honest with you, it's such a great thing to be able to compare to this one made in '93 as opposed to this one being made recently, and just see that quality of Japanese guitars, the materials that they use, everything still stands up. So you might want to look at, I throw that out there because Gibsons are getting to be astronomical. There's Tokais, there's old Orville and Orville by Gibson guitars, and even guys here like Stoner who are producing these guitars in Japan and shipping them over here to the EU. That are alternatives out there. So it doesn't necessarily have to say Gibson on the headstock to be a Les Paul. What makes it a great Les Paul is, does it talk to you? Does it speak to you? All right, that's it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscription button. If you like today's content, I would really love it if you took the time to hit that like button as well. Leave a comment in the comment section. I read each and every one of them, and I will reply to each and every one of them as well. So if you have any thoughts or comments, leave them down below. Until the next one, you guys take care. Bye-bye.